Okay, I will now hand over to Garry, and while he gets going, thank you. Hang on. Just talk amongst yourselves, or Garry, you can do a tap dance.
I thought I might do some karaoke, actually. And that should clear the church early for Father's Day. Excellent, we're over. That was very quick. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, and please don't think that this sermon now is going to start after we've done all that and that you're here till mid-afternoon. It's not going to happen. This is short. But I just wanted to look at discipleship and shepherding, not a full sermon on discipleship and shepherding, but actually linked to the website. And so that's where we're sort of heading with this. Shepherding's actually important, and at one level I know I'm preaching here to the converted in the sense that we know that. But Jesus actually made a real point of this. We read this in John chapter 10. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep and am known by my own. Then John 21, he said to him, this is to Peter, feed my lambs. Once again, he said to him, feed my sheep. And again, feed my sheep. You can see that shepherding is actually really important to God. It's actually important because it's actually how we grow. It shows care, and it's a matter of actually protecting, because that's what a shepherd did. They protected. But they also made sure that adequate food and nourishment was around for the sheep. And in that sense, I guess particularly here at Southland, I actually think we're all responsible to each other for that. Yes, Sarah and I are pastors, that's true, but you're probably well aware we're not really a church that operates on hierarchy. We're in it together. It's one body, Jesus is head of that body, and we look out for each other. That's how we operate. So I just want to look at, just briefly, how did Jesus go about this? Jesus shepherded by example in the local setting. And I always look this, Matthew chapter 13. And the disciples came and said to him, why do you speak to them in parables? He answered and said to them. See, Jesus actually took time to speak to people. And to his own disciples, he actually took time just to sit down and speak into them. It wasn't just a case of, well, you get, whatever's happening and I'm out there, I'm ministering to everybody, the 5,000, and you just get the same and whatever. He actually really spoke individually. He gave them that level of intimacy, which was at a local setting. He also shows something different here, and this is from Luke 15. Most of you would know this story. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does he not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbours, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. I say to you that likewise there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 just persons who need no repentance. And he's talking there about the 99, of course, being his people already. But there's one missing. And so what happens here is Jesus also not just ministers to those already seated in the church in that sense, which he does, but he goes out beyond that. He's looking for the lost. He wants to reach out further. His kingdom is not just local in that sense. He's reaching out beyond that. And so we're looking here at how he does this. And he gives a really good example of this with the woman at the well. John chapter 4. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Joseph's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her. It's really interesting when you look at that and how he shepherds here. He's seeking the lost one. Scripture says there, now he had to go through Samaria. Geographically, actually, he didn't have to go through Samaria. It's really interesting if you look at the geography of it. What he had to do was he was actually going to Galilee from Judah. Now, you go north, but what Jews did in those days was they didn't want to go through the contaminated Samaria, so they used to go east and around on the very edge of it and walk up and get to Galilee. And that way you didn't have to go through the great unwashed. That was pretty much what they thought. And yet it says here, Jesus had to go through Samaria. The reason he had to go was because that's where the lost sheep were. It wasn't because he had to do it geographically. It's because he actually had this love for the lost that he wanted to reach out. And he was finding a way to reach out beyond the normal routes of communication that he had. It's important we see that. So how do we do that? How do we actually mirror the way Jesus shepherded? In the sense of what we do here. We're going to continue to feed the local church on site as we always have done. I know there's a couple of photos there. I think one looks like it's spot fires, another one is shared lunch. We're going to continue exactly as we have in that sense. We're going to have the life groups, the youth ministries, the seniors. The prayer ministries will remain. We're actually hoping to grow the prayer ministries next year as well. Those things are set. That won't change. But one thing that we are really aware of is how do we actually reach you guys to actually help shepherd you in this modern world, but also reach out to others. And one of the things that I think in the past, and churches, I understand it because we've lived in a different world from a technology point of view, we've tended to always call people in. And we'll still continue to do that. I'll give an example. We would have the quiz night. We would have a gingerbread Christmas event. We would have a women's ministry event, maybe the men's breakfast. We will still continue to do that. Those events are great. We love them. But the reality of those things are that you can only do so many of them because there's volunteers involved and you can only give so much when you have other things like your family and that. But also, people are busy. There's only so many events you can actually do over and over. And when you're also looking after marriages, family, other commitments, there can be caring for people. So we were thinking, how do we actually look at this, how Jesus did it? And I was fascinated looking at what he did going to that well in Samaria. And I thought, he went to them. So that's what we're intending to do. So what we're hoping to be released next year is we want to start a podcast ministry. Now, part of this is still operating. So it will be on podcast for the audio and then a YouTube channel for the video stuff. We are still going to be continuing to do like a sermon of the week and the live recording, which already happens. That's still on YouTube channels now, and that continues. But we were thinking we would like to be able to speak into people's lives. So when they're going just driving to work, or you're taking kids around like a taxi and whatever you're doing, or that sort of stuff, there'll be times when you can just click onto Southland and actually hear other content which will help you guys in your growth as disciples. And we'll be the same, because we'll be learning just the same. So we're thinking of having, much of it will be interview style. Some of it will be topics looking like things. It could be a topic on what is it like to raise children as a mum in the modern world. What are the pitfalls? And you have a discussion with 2 or 3 women. One might be the grandmother age, one's got teens and one's got little tackers. And just discussing, what does that mean in the context of being a Christian woman? I could see conversations on, you get a verse. I was thinking this the other day. We had spot fires and TK gave a verse from a psalm, and it was basically saying, Lord, you led us through the wilderness. We give you thanks. Why would you give thanks for going into a wilderness? What is a wilderness? How does that actually lead to intimacy with God? Where is God in all that? And how does a wilderness with God prepare us for ministry? If you think back, Jesus was the Spirit led him into the wilderness before his ministry. That sort of thing. So it'll be a range of topics. Some of it will be personal testimony. But all of these things we're wanting to be able to then just load them up. The aim is sort of something about every fortnight. We think we can probably manage that. That people could literally just turn on in the car and listen to. And this will also give us much more reach outside of Southland Church's physical building, because we are named Southland Church in the marketplace, but the marketplace is becoming globalised. So what we want to do is we actually want to, in a sense, feed the sheep here, but reach out to sheep out there in other churches, but also to the lost. And this technology, we're hoping, will give us a much bigger footprint to work in the kingdom. And the other thing, of course, is too that this will then be accessible, particularly for a number of the churches that we are partnering with overseas. Just at the moment, I think we're in about 9 or 10 countries now on the African continent, where we're sponsoring pastors in different churches who are already pastoring, haven't had theological training, and we're helping to supply that. So Southland Church is sponsoring that. This sort of technology would then be available for those people in those churches to listen as well. So we start to actually gain access to have a much stronger presence as we go out as a church, as we're trying to disciple people across all nations. This is not going to be a Garry and Sarah production, by the way. We might be involved in the odd one or two, that's fine, but it would be other people. We're wanting to talk to you guys. It might actually be at times where it'll be you guys are the only ones around that particular conversation table. We're not actually involved. We might be just looking after a camera, whatever else. Everything will go through 5 or 6 people just to listen to it first, make sure that we think, yep, everything is actually okay, that what's going out there actually does glorify God. So it's not like it's just going to be released live. But that's where that's heading. So the website that Sarah showed before, on the actual menu bar, there is actually one. You can keep them hidden. There is actually a podcast little tab there, which isn't visible yet. We won't release that until later. But that's where we're wanting to go with the shepherding. So there's probably not much more to say than that. I just wanted to let you know what that part of it means. Sarah's shown you the website. We're hoping to get this going in probably a couple of weeks. Once we go through it, make sure the bugs are out of it and whatever else. If you're wondering how quickly, according to Rob, It's very simple. We're going to be using exactly the same web name. Nothing changes. It's just a matter of you literally press a button at his end and the old website goes down and the new one comes up to the same link. So it's not like we're going to be off the airwaves for a few days. But we do want to test it first and just make sure that we think we've got everything right. And then when we don't, please let us know immediately, because I'm sure that we'll miss something. Anyway, that's where I want to finish it. As I said, I wasn't going to talk for long. So hopefully, guys, that we're really looking forward to it. It's certainly a new ministry for us, and we're going to be relying on a lot of other people with skills to do it. But we're also looking forward to seeing a lot of you guys having an opportunity to share your testimonies, your personal experience of God in your life and how that can actually help disciple others. So we think it's going to be an exciting time ahead. So that's where we're heading, and that will be next year. That's the aim, guys. So, yeah.